And I want to stop my share. There we go. So we're live on Facebook now. That's really cool. I can't hear you, Theda. You are muted. There we go.
Okay, Nixikoa, Nistuni Doniko, Makoyo Sakoi. I greet you from the Blackfeet Nation, where I am on Zoom. And today is very exciting because we wanted to, Native Wellness Institute wants to open the dialogue and open the door to hearing stories about Black women and about Native women. And so today, the title of our topic is Women of Color Issues. And we have a special guest, Judith Heilman. I'm going to have her. Judith, would you please tell us? We've got, a diversity. We've got countries out there. We've got 577 tribes. We've got a lot of America and looking at us in Canada. Judith, could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Certainly. My name is Judith Heilman. I'm a veteran Black person. And
I love that.
I've been introducing myself lately as a veteran law enforcement officer. So first, I usually say I'm a veteran law enforcement officer, and I'm a veteran Black person. So so that just says that I can see both sides, but they're totally combined within me. I can't separate the two. I can't separate my 13 years as a cop from me as a Black person, but me as a Black person certainly informed my work as a police officer, and knowing how police work goes and how law enforcement officers think and how agencies operate is a great insight for me in my work on criminal justice reform. So, but I was originally born in San Francisco. Well, originally born in San Francisco. I was born in San Francisco, and originally from the South Bay of San Francisco, and but I've moved out here to Montana, and I live in Bozeman. And I've only lived in Bozeman here in Montana in 2005, although I've been visiting since 2001 with my husband. And we've been all around the state. I've just done lots of different things. I was the Obama state director for the 2012 re-election campaign. And that's where I first met Theda and her mom, Betty Cooper, in 2012. And so it's just been lovely, our friendship, and we have treasured it throughout the years. And now, currently, I am the executive director of the Montana Racial Equity Project. We work racial equity and justice.
Hi, Judith. I'm getting a little bit frozen. Can you hear me? Well, I will just continue. It seems that we've lost Judith for a minute. So I wanted to start from the Native women's perspective. I'd like to share a story with you while we're waiting for Judith to come back on. I grew up hearing a story about Pita Maka. And Pita Maka is Running Eagle. And Running Eagle is she's a woman that lived in the early 1800s. And so I kind of wanted to start. It's a story that brought self-esteem, a story that brought confidence, a story that brought just a lot of little Indian girls, when they grew up with her story, they knew they had a lot of choice in life. And so I'm just going to share in a nutshell. And Judith, I'm glad that you're back on. I saw that there was an interruption. So for Pita Maka was, she was about 15 years old when both of her parents died. And around that time, we had a lot of smallpox epidemics. Our in this area, the Blackfoot Confederacy and Montana area, Canada area, we went through severe smallpox. Like in 1869, 2/3 of our people died from smallpox, and so we had these kind of traumatic things that happened. So Pita Maka, her parents both died, and she was 15 years old. And that left her, Pita Maka, Running Eagle, and she had 2 brothers and 3 sisters. And usually back then, and that's sometimes with a Native family, if the parents are both gone or taken away, and today they're taken out by opioids, today they're taken out by methamphetamine, or today they're just taken out. They're killed or murdered, or they're missing or murdered. And so Pita Maka back then, she decided that she didn't want her family to be broken up, because usually when when children are orphaned, they were spread out among the family. But Pita Maka, she decided that her 2 brothers could hunt, and they were proficient hunters. Her 2 brothers could protect them. And then her other 3 sisters, that they could take care of the lodge. That's what we call a teepee. And that they could tan the hides, and that they could take care of what would be, considered the household. And they became prosperous. And she was 15 winters. We always go by winters. And they were able to live prosperous, that young family, without parents. And then when she was about 20 winters, when she was about 20 years old, she wanted to go to war. She was interested. She wanted, because war didn't necessarily, there was war, but she wanted to steal horses. so Pita Maka snuck into a war party that was going over towards the Flathead area. And when they were almost all at their place, where they saw the encampment, they discovered that she was with them, because she was dressed as a man. And when they discovered her, they said, "Oh, you got to go back. No woman can be on with this war party. You're going to need to go back." But for some reason, there was a very powerful medicine man with that war party. And this medicine man said, he said, "I have a good feeling about her being with us. I have that she'll bring us good luck, that something really good is going to happen in this effort." So they let her stay. And when they found the encampment, Pita Maka, she stepped forward and she said, "Why don't you let me sneak into the camp first? I'm very good at this." And so she said, "Let me and see if I can get some horses." So she snuck into the camp, and she was able to bring out a really nice pinto horse. And there were stallions, there were buffalo runners, there was very fast running horses. And so she was able to, with this war party, tell them, which horses were where. And so they all snuck in, and they were able to sneak out enough horses so that they could come across the mountains. There was no bloodshed, no one died. And it was considered, that it's a successful war party. They stole a bunch of horses and nobody got hurt. It was a coup story. So Pita Maka went on several of these trips where she went out with war parties, and they were very successful. And one of these, and during this time, this story has to do with her own power, her own confidence level, her own self-esteem. Is she was always approached by men, older men, younger men, very rich men, and they asked for her hand in marriage or to be married, and she just said no to all of them. She said no so strongly that they stopped asking. That she wasn't the marrying kind. She saw her men as her brothers, and all of these men, it was very important, they saw her, they treated her like a sister. And that's very important because it has to do with respect, respecting every woman like she's your sister. And so when they went out one time, and so this is just another part of the story that I'd like to tell, Judith, because it helps define a female identity. Is they met up with some blood, some kainai, and the kainai and the Amskapi Pikani, the Blackfeet, got together, and they went again on this war party over towards Flathead, and they were going to steal some horses. And the blood chief was his name was Falling Bear. He was a very well-known, revered leader, a very high esteemed man. And he asked her, would you, he said, I think I love you, I think I admire you, I think that you should marry me. And but then Pita Maka, she said, I'm not going to say yes or I'm not going to say no. Why don't we continue on this war party? And when we're done, I'll give you an answer. So he was very, very encouraged. He was just super encouraged because he thought, he just really admired, he was falling in love with her and he wanted to marry her. And so when they went out to this encampment, Pita Maka told Falling Bear, she said, okay, you go in first. You go in and let's see what you can get. Let's see. She wanted to see his skill level. So he snuck into the camp and he got a couple of really nice horses, and he came back out. And then Pita Maka went in and she snuck out 5 horses. And then the rest of the warriors that they were with, they all took some time and they snuck in quietly, and they all took horses, and it was successful again. And what happened at the end there is Falling Bear had only snuck out 9 horses, and Pita Maka had stolen 15 horses. And so when they were going back, he said to her, because he was just looking, dreamingly at her, he said, I can't wait. I just really love you. My heart, you have my heart. He said, I need to know your answer now. And I hope your answer is yes, I want to be your woman. And so Pita Maka says to him, he said, he said, he was looking at her and she was looking at him, and and this is the diplomacy of a woman, the diplomacy of a warrior woman. She said, when we went out, and if you had stolen more horses than me, my answer would have been yes. But since I stole more horses than you, my answer is no, I can't marry you. And I'm going to there's much, we can go, there's a lot of Pita Maka stories, but Pita Maka was one of the first Kami Poismaniks. She had a stand-up war bonnet, and she wore that stand-up war bonnet into battle sometimes. Terrence Gardapi paints these, and I'm a Nistu Kami Poismaniks. There's over 80 of us stand-up headdresses in the Blackfoot Confederacy at Siksikai, Kainai, Abatsa Pikani, and Amskapi Pikani. It's there, we exist today, and I'm one of those. And so I kind of wanted to share that story because I think if every little Indian girl heard that story, that it would influence her to find her own self-actualization, her own power, her own self-esteem, and her own confidence. And so I'm gonna end there, Judith, because we brought you on the show. Native Wellness Institute just loves you, Judith, because we're Black Lives Matter. And so we really want to hear some of your stories and some of what you have to share with us today. So I'm going to shoot it back to you, Judith. And I understand you come with some photos, and I'd like you just to tell us some stories that lift the hearts for Black women. You're muted. You're mute. You're muted.
I'm back.
Okay.
To lift the hearts of Black women, there were just a lot of different things that I had to go through that as a woman, but in particular as a Black woman, and every single Black woman in this country, every single Native woman in this country, every single person who has a darker skin color in this country has had these kinds of things happen, but in particular Black and Native. And just being judged more by the color of our skin as being not worthy of anything outside of menial labor or servitude. Let's put it that way, just servitude for the least amount of money, zero if possible. And so much of that is reflected in so many different ways. That going through school and how your teachers and how your counselors and how your administrators treat you and what they assume about you, to always having to do 2 or 3 times as well to be considered half as good. And I learned that from my mother's knee, so much. And I mean, as far as white society goes, as far as anybody who discriminated against Black people. So, and I know that other people of color can discriminate against Black people, and I know that the reverse exists as well. And that's just awful. I think that we need to be standing up for one another. We've all had to fight to be able to not just survive, but to thrive, so many assumptions based on skin color, right? By the dominant society. And the dominant society here for centuries has been white. So it's just, you just barrel on ahead, and you know that some people are going to just think bad of you no matter how well you do or how smart you are or anything like that. And I'm not one of those people who wants to do well for any sort of status or anything like that. I'm always wanting, I'm the kind of person who there's a saying, and I don't know who said it. I've never been able to really track it down 100%. But there's a saying, go out into the world and do well, but more importantly, go out into the world and do good. And I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people. Whenever somebody graduates from high school or college, that's what I write on their card, especially college, or stuff like that. And I'm really proud of somebody, and as they move forward in a career or in their studies or whatever it is, it's like always do good. Yes, do well, but always do good. Never forget the little guy, never forget the people who are still struggling. If you get a leg up, it's your responsibility to turn around and give somebody a lift up as well. So, I mean, I could share some of my experiences. Yes. Some were shocking and some were like, what was that? And some of them were like, oh, I saw this coming. It's just like, ugh. Yeah. You and I were talking about the term jungle bunny or jungle fever and stuff like that a while ago, which would be an interesting story to tell from both of our perspectives.
Yes. Let me just share a shortened story, and then you share your side to it too, because one of the healing, and this is for healing purposes, is I grew up with a lot of stories of jungle fever, jungle bunnies, jungle, and so I was just thinking about a specific example in Montana. We had when the first white traders came here, when the first white men came, they came without women. And one of the things, that some of them came to Fort Benton, some came from Texas.
Mhm.
And when they came into the area, they knew that our Blackfeet women had land. And
Yeah.
once they discovered that they had 380 acres, they had 280 acres, 180 acres, they got a fever for them because they had land. And so, and at that time, the buffalo were disappearing. The ways in which we lived, we were murdered down to, we were almost annihilated and almost wiped out. At the turn of the century, there was like, less than 2,000 of us. We almost died and we almost got wiped out. So this was during the period, when a lot of these white men who came in, and they came in from Texas, and they found out that that we had land, or we had access to land. And so then they would actually, and our women were starving, our families were starving. So at Fort Benton, and I'll just, there's many stories, but at Fort Benton, they would bring the beautiful Blackfeet women, and of course they're all beautiful, the
Yeah.
young Blackfeet women, to appease these men. And
Mhm.
they would set up feasts, and of course they're starving. Here they are starving to death. And they would set up these feasts with a lot of food, and the men wanted to dance and drink alcohol. And so they brought in these beautiful girls. There was lots of food. So the girls, they were starving to death. So they went there, and you could eat. And then there was dancing. And of course, these women were raped. It was that was like a norm, that it was okay to rape these women and be with them for the night, And so I'm just, so then, this um, jungle fever, or jungle, all of these terms, there was these white men came, and it was okay just to use us as, and thinking of us of less than human
Yeah.
to use to
Yeah.
have their way with us. And so I'm just, that's kind of pissing me off. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, even I could tell these stories, but I was just saying, and I say pissing me off because I want to heal from this with a loving heart.
Yeah.
I want to heal from this. And this is how the first white men that came treated us, as such less than, as that we didn't matter, that we were just these women to be used and abused and tossed to the side. And so that, I'm sharing that in my tears, because those of you watching us, Judith and I, we just want to start to open the dialogue for healing. We want to start to
Yes.
open dialogue, and Judith and I have some stories to share with you, where, so that term, and that those terms. So I'm going to kind of, this isn't, I don't want to hog up all the time, Judith. I wanted to ask you to share with us, because we had talked about some of these terms and how we're healing from them today. And I thank you guys for letting me shed some tears, because I'm healing, you're healing, and Native Wellness Institute, it's all about all of our healing. So Judith, what do you think about that?
Well, you tell that story, and it reminds me of the time when I was a young detective um, in police work, and there was there was some case that I was working on. I can't even remember what it was, but the suspect was a. I'm not even sure who. I'm not even sure I knew that it was a woman involved
Hmm.
in this case with some other people, and I had to call. I think it was Houston PD, but it was Texas, and I had to speak to a detective down there. And now this was in the late '70s,
Okay.
and so it would have been, I mean, maybe 81, 80 or 81. And so there I was speaking with a Texas detective with the drawl and everything like that. And he
Yeah.
had a mugshot of a woman. And so I was asking, and so this was before faxes even, you know? Um, so I was asking, so what does she look like? And what's her description and this and that? And it was obviously a white Texan, I could tell from the voice. Um, and he said, well, she doesn't look too much like a jungle bunny. And I was so freaking shocked. I was so shocked. I didn't even know what to do. I was just like speechless at that moment. And I was not yet at the point where I was just going to rip into somebody over the phone and say, what the F are you talking about? You know, because he couldn't tell that I was black on the phone. And I would presume if he thought that I was black on the phone, that he wouldn't have said that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. So I finished my conversation with him. I got whatever information I needed, and I was fuming. I was fuming. I said, I cannot just let this go. I can't let this go. I was so angry. So I stomped into our chief's office, into the police chief's office,
Yeah.
and I told him what had happened, and he was pissed as hell. So when I left his office, he was looking for the phone number of that department's chief of police. So you could call him up and tell him something. Now I have no idea how that conversation went. I don't know if the chief said, yeah, right. Oh, that was terrible, and then just let it go. I have no idea. But at least I felt like I got some support for that from a white man, the chief of police, and
Yeah.
who was furious himself and called that department's chief of police. So I felt pretty good about that. um, but it was just a shocker, and that was part of what led me to be much more vocal after that, and not putting up with that, excuse me, that crap anymore. um, so that's just part of my movement towards um, what some people would call me radical. I was not. I was never a Black Panther. I didn't aspire to be a Black Panther. I have nothing on the Black Panthers, but I'm my own version of radical. So here I am working on police reform, um, with all this stuff about getting school resource officers out of school, and hearing white people say, "Oh, but what about school shootings?" And in fact, in our nation, across this country of the United States, no school resource officer has ever stopped a shooting on school grounds ever. So that's why do we have all these school resource officers in uniform patrolling schools, um, when that can be done so much better by, as far as having people who students can trust, being licensed clinical social workers or counselors, on extra counselors on staff who are trained in multicultural assessment, who understand that racism, bigotry, and prejudice causes mental pain. The whole thing about ACE that people talk about, what is that? Adverse childhood experiences.
Yes.
Part of adverse childhood experiences for you and I, Theda, is racism. So dealing with it in schools, from not only fellow students but from the teachers, administrators, and staff. I mean, even the janitor for the school can be racist, and do stuff to a student that and say things to a student and treat them horribly, and that's an adverse childhood experience. And we know that it actually will change our DNA. And we know that these things have to do with a lesser lifespan and for us being much more subject to certain diseases. And that leads to now where Native Americans and Black people in particular are so much more subject to getting COVID, coming down with COVID, and to die from it, from these pre-existing conditions that have to do with friggin' racism,
Yeah,
that have to do with all that stuff that goes back to the foods that we eat, the foods that we were prevented from eating, that we traditionally ate and harvested ourselves, um, all those kinds of things, economics and all that.
yeah.
I'm on a roll. I'm sorry.
No, no. Well, just take a pause and thank you. No, that's why
Yes.
we have invited you, Judith, because Native Wellness Institute, we want to provide some healing formats, and that's what today is about. And
Yeah.
so appreciate our enthusiasm to cry, to talk, to tell stories.
Mhm.
I as you were just speaking, just to take a moment for, when we're healing, when we're actively healing, with the tears or
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
anger or the emotions that we get, that's positive, that we can share it and we're not stuffing it. We're not stuffing it
Yeah.
down, and so we've invited you, Judith, to come on the program. When we were just visiting, you had wanted to share some pictures and you wanted to do some
Yeah.
story, because storytelling is how Indians heal, through storytelling. The
Yeah.
story heal. So I just, Judith, would you share some of that with us? The
I
pictures.
can.
Yeah, please do. Okay.
I can. I'm going to share my screen. And first, I'm going to share a picture of you and your mom and your sister. This is just one of the pictures that I love to look at. It's very calming for me. So, the background and just, I don't know, it's just very soothing for me. So, I just wanted to talk about that. And
Okay.
then, there's another set where my husband and I went to Tanzania, and have actually been there 3 times now, which was really something else. And so this is a grandmother, a Maasai grandmother, out in the Serengeti, the Serengeti Plains, which are just massive, um, that span that cross the border from between Kenya and Tanzania. And I was in Tanzania, and so we were on a tented safari so that we could just be out there and just trying to know more about the land and the people, and everything. And it was just a very humbling experience for her to invite me into her hut. Into, I think it's called the Doma. Anyway, so it's made of mud and dung, and branches and everything to give it strength. And she lived there with her daughter and her husband, and or maybe it was her son and her daughter-in-law and their new baby. So she was very proud to show me, and she allowed me to take a picture. I asked her if I could take a picture, and so she she gave me that permission. And then this was like the roof. Okay, so, and these were just some other areas. That's a bed over there in the corner. Um, and then this this was our guide, and he was a really really nice guy. We called him, I think it was Eli, but he had a native name that I don't know what the name. I don't remember what it is now. But anyway, for the grandmother, this was her son, her daughter-in-law, and her baby. And I learned then when I was just asking the baby's name that they had not given the name of the baby yet because the baby was so young, and just wanting not only to make sure that the baby would live, and survive, but also that, as you said, Theda, and you can talk about this in a minute, other reasons why not so many Indigenous people don't name their babies until months later. But we also had some time out in um, in the field. We went to what I call the mall.
Yeah.
And we were out in the Serengeti, and there was a tree nearby, and some of the ladies who did beadwork and things they came out and they had I think there was a table, but more than that, they just laid out some blankets. You see that one blanket sort of in the lower right-hand corner here, where they laid out some jewelry and things that they had made. And here I am talking to a Maasai man, a Maasai warrior who also spoke English, and asking if we could, what was a good price to ask for buying this, because I wanted to be respectful. And
Yeah.
it was just really wonderful to be able to talk with them, and and um, and that they allowed me to take pictures. This was really important. And this woman right here, I was just so enamored of her because you can tell she's older. And I just look at her and look at her hands and just wonder how much she's seen. And I just think she's got to be so wise. Um, just all the different things that she's seen in her lifetime there in Tanzania. And I just had such deep respect, deep respect. Um, and times are changing. Times are changing. I mean, here was one of our guide. Here is a Maasai warrior on a motorbike. You know, and then, and here's out there with this another one out there with a spear, and then this one, there he is talking on his cell phone. But seriously, the Maasai are so known there in Tanzania and also in Kenya that even lions will avoid them. If the lion sees a Maasai, especially with a spear, they will avoid them because they are trained as warriors and they're not daunted by that. You'll see them out walking across some broad expanse all by themselves with nothing but their eyes and their ears and their senses and their spear. And just like, I don't know where they're going, but they've got command, So I was just like, it was just so awesome. It was so awesome. And to think that, that somewhere in my life I might be related to any of them, since my family, whereas initially came from the continent of Africa, even though they are on East Africa, but these people are in East Africa, but people still migrated. And also, while I was there, it was really nice to hear the Lulus. They would Lulu too. And I thought, geez, as a Black person, can I Lulu? But maybe I can only Lulu there, but I don't know if I can Lulu here, because here Lulus are seen more as as Native American, or anybody coming from Ethiopia or Eritrea. So there are times that I've just wanted to Lulu, but I just keep it to myself, or I just do it in private.
Hey, Judith, on the count of three, let's just Lulu together. Okay.
Okay.
On the count of three, let's just you and I just Lulu together, because it's actually sacred. And then I'll just say a couple words about it. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Exactly, Judith. And it's a transfer right to Lulu, but it's to announce something glorious and spectacular, and to the ancestors and to the universe and to all of the tribal people. So when we see something like, having you on the show, I just want to Lulu, Native Wellness Institute, you know, and we have our allies, because you're an ally and you're a sister. You're a sister to bring some cohesiveness in our world, to bring some calmness in our world, and to bring some healing in our world. And that's why I Lulu you, and we Lulu together. Yes, because Judith, you and I and all of our African American sisters and all of our tribal sisters, our alliance will bring healing to this United States of America. And we're not saying anyone has to move out or go away. We used to say that, but we all got to work this out. We all got to work this out so that we're living in a world that we create that's better for our children, better for the babies that are being born, better for the pregnancies that are coming, that we're bringing a peacefulness and a harmony. And you know, and thank you for your tears. I'm having some tears because this is just feeling for right now. You know, and I'm so glad that you shared those pictures, because in the United States, our tribes, you know, it's just been in the last 50 years. It's just been in the last, we weren't even citizens until 1924 in the United States. We were considered less than, and even in some areas, we're still considered less of and less than. So Judith, you know, thank you for your tears. I didn't want to cut you off because, man, I was just really enjoying your I was enjoying your stories, you know, and enjoying what you were sharing with us. So let me ask you this, Judith. You know, we're at a good place. We got a good 20 minutes, you know, because we want to plant the seeds of healing. We want to plant the seeds of reclaiming. We want to plant the seeds so that our country can build some alliances. So Judith, and you're our guest, and please, we honor you for being our guest on Native Wellness Institute. What else are you thinking? How can we begin to start to build the alliances? And maybe tell us a little bit more about your organization in Montana, in racist Montana.
I know.
So I'm gonna hand it back over to you, Judith. So tell us more.
Well, you know, at this moment in time, especially here in Montana, and in the United States, we've got COVID, right?
Yes.
We have this pandemic that is being terribly mismanaged by our federal government in so many of our states and local jurisdictions. And that has caused the economy to plummet, and has caused so many people to be out of work, to be facing eviction because they can't pay their bills, because they're out of work. So much that has to do with Native people and Black people and people up from Mexico and further south. And it's such a time of crisis. And then, God bless them, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, so many others, but particularly with George Floyd being horrifically, dispassionately murdered over a period of almost 9 minutes, and it being on film. And it's the momentum that we have. And I've been really, really heartened by the solidarity that Native Americans, the indigenous here on this country, have for the BLM movement. And I'm not talking Bureau of Land Management, right? I'm talking Black Lives Matter. And you know, you're taking that, and I'm gonna somewhere underneath here. Hang on, I've got my own sage here. Somebody emailed me.
Yeah.
The person who made me my earrings.
Please keep talking. You know, because
or
and us.
Yeah. So that solidarity is really super important because, and here in Montana, it's really strong. I'm so pleased about it. Um, and the Montana Racial Equity Project has always stood really closely with Native Americans in this state because we have so many struggles that are identical and for the same reasons. But obviously, there's a lot for other reasons. There's the treaties and territories and language and all that kind of. We sort of have a language thing too, because there's African American Vernacular English (AAVE) or what some people call black speak. So if I were to talking about we be popping and all these other words that if I'm in a room full of black folk, I will turn into using that language. So in a way I'm like what do you call it? Multilingual, bilingual. I can code switch between this standard English, American English right now, and then speaking with my Black brothers and sisters in a way that's much more informal and that we completely connect with each other on. So yeah, there's it's a struggle to work racial equity and justice here in Montana, and it has been for the whole 5 years that I've been since I founded the organization. But uh, but now, since late May, it's just a lot easier because it woke up a bunch of white people out of their sense that everything was fine and that we're in a post-racial society because we elected a black president for 2 years. But then nobody went back to the polls to keep him. Well, it's just a whole nother story. So anyway, I'm not even going to get into that. But just have a lot of solidarity and all my Native American friends around the state are talking about how important it is to be there for this Black Lives Matter movement, because we're there for them, you know? And I just want to make sure that that stays the case and that just grows and blossoms because we need to stand up for each other. We need to stand up for each other. We're brothers and sisters, as far as I'm concerned. We're relatives in this fight. And the more solidarity we have, the more oomph we can put behind things to get change, positive change made, to decriminalize the criminal justice system, and stuff like that, to educate the education system, all those kinds of things. It's very important.
Yeah. No, thank you, Judith. And and thank you, from Native Wellness Institute. We're just really pleased to have you as a guest. And because we in order to build relationships, we got to get to know each other. And I think that we're inviting, Native Wellness Institute is inviting other people of color for us to be side by side as we move forward into this soon to be election and this time that we're in. So let's with our remaining time, let's do a little bit of dreaming, Judith, like hopes and dreams. Like what if you had the magic wand, if you had the magic wand, what kinds of hopes and dreams would you give to America right now, or even Montana? What kind of hopes and dreams? What kind of things? Remedies, solutions, answer to our prayers, kind of thing. So share some of that with us, Judith.
We live in this capitalist society, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to see less capitalism. I don't know that changing out of our capitalistic society will happen in either of our lifetimes. But I would like to see all these people who have all this money actually putting in the government putting money, less money into militarization and into the education and training, skills training for people. I mean, I was just talking to someone about workforce issues this morning, who's an expert in workforce issues, and here in the state, and we were talking about how just to be trained, say for a plumber, if you want to be a plumber, and plumbers make a lot of money, that if you want to be trained as a plumber, you have to go through apprenticeship and all that kind of stuff to journeyman and everything. And say you've never done plumbing before, but still to go to plumbing school, I'm sure there must be some sort of plumbing school first, and then you get a job as an apprentice. Um, all that takes money, and if you've got and if you have to take out loans to go to that schooling, and then if your training requires you to be paid like hardly anything, so that you still can't maintain your family, um, and pay your bills or pay off your student loans, then how good is that? You can't you know you have to there has to be financial support for this
Yeah.
kind of a thing. Given the history of our country, where we are, where Native Americans are right now, and where Black people are right now, the racial wealth gap is staggering. It's just staggering, and where bootstraps is that's just such a stupid thing. Everybody just picks themselves up by their bootstraps, and this whole American dream: if you work hard enough, you'll be successful. Now, I've heard Obama say that I don't know how many times, and I don't know why he does that because it's not true. You know, you can work hard, 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 but it depends on how far from the bottom you're coming from, whether you can be successful. There's so many circumstances that get in the way: health, um, um, just education, and everything. You can struggle to do your best, but if you've got people trying to sabotage you all along the way, and systems are out there that are not built for you, but they're built for the white person, the white man in particular, and they're
Mhm.
not built for you, it's just so much harder. So I would like to see much more investment from this country in people who have been historically marginalized, disenfranchised, and oppressed as far as health, welfare, finances, and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And so we can be more on an equal level with everybody. It should be equity, not equality, but equity.
Equity. Yeah. No,
Mm.
thank you, Judith, and thank you, for your equity thoughts. I was just, I dream. I was just dream. I'm really, and part of my dream came true. Our tribe, we've got 1.5 million acres right here at the top of Montana. Our tribe is shut down and protecting our elders and protecting all of our people, and
Yeah.
they're and it stopped all of the 3.1 million tourists coming here on this side, and because
Mm.
we've said that our people's lives, our elders, all of our 90-year-old, our 80-year-old elders, my mother, who and mom was you know I, anyway, we've stopped from people from coming in and infecting us
Yeah.
in our 1.5 million acres, and so that is giving some hope, but Judith, I always we get scorched for time, so we're going to invite you back again, but let's just end this on a positive note. Let's just and I'll let you go first, and then just share with me, if you could choose some good things to happen. I mean, like, if we undo racism, if you could choose some good things to happen in these next few months to be the outcome of all of this sacrifice, all of us staying at home, all of us protecting our elders by not infecting them, all of us wearing masks, all of that, share some of that with us in these remaining moments, and then I'll recap. Could you do that, please?
I can. I've come to grips with pretty much an empath, and that's what makes this work a lot harder for me. But I know this sounds maybe trite, but if we could come out of this with more love and care for one another and more determination to look out for one another,
Yes.
that would be it. That would be it for me.
Yeah. You're causing me tears because we have to learn to put our hand and our heart halfway across the table.
Yes.
In every sense, and with that comes forgiveness. We have to we can't let hate or hard steer us. We have to have forgiveness. We have to have forgiveness, and we have to grab each other's hand when we can again, and ally with each other. And since we can't do that in person, we have to do it over the media, like what we're doing right now. I lit this smudge, and I was just thinking, Judith, I want to just thank you for coming on Native Wellness Institute's show today, just to begin the dialogue. And I think, I'm doing some healing right here. We got to heal together. Our country has to heal together. And people of color, we've got to, don't give up. Keep allying with each other. Keep telling the stories. We've got to build this alliance, and then leave room for white allies to come in. For the white alliance to join with us, because I think in each one of their hearts, their body, and their soul, that they want some peace. They want their grandchildren, they want their unborn babies to grow up in a more a beautiful world. And see, that's as we're winding down, I can see a time, because like when you see 2-year-olds and you see 1-year-olds, and we had NWI had a show where Robert Johnston, God bless Robert, he brought in all these young wise people and a place where every 2-year-old, regardless of what their color is, they can ally with other 2-year-olds and not grow up passing judgment. And I believe that in this great United States of America, that we're going through this rough time, but that's what's at the other end. In 20 years, when I'm even an older lady, and when you and I will have to climb the mountains around here together. But
Get me on a motorized scooter or something. I don't know.
we'll get a helicopter. But Judith, on behalf of Native Wellness Institute, I just want to thank you for coming on the show. And we're probably going to invite you again, because I think we're going to do some mending. We're going to do a lot of healing. And our at Native Wellness Institute, it's just, we try to take the teachings of our ancestors, and at the same time take the teachings of African ancestors and America's ancestors. And I think that the people of color ancestors, as we invite and we listen to each other, we have a pretty darn good idea how we can do some healing and bring us all together, so that our next 7 generations, our offspring, all of our nieces and nephews, and all of our future world are going to be in a better place. I just think we're going through some times where we have to shed tears right now. So I thank you, and we're probably going to have you on again. I thank Robert Johnston. I thank Shannon of our staff, and I thank Jolene Joseph. Then Judith, before we sign off, just tell us your organization and how people can get access to that.
Oh, we're called the Montana Racial Equity Project, not Equality, Equity Project. You can find us on the web. You can just do a search for the Montana Racial Equity Project, or you can just go to THE for the, MT for Montana, REP for Racial Equity Project.org. So THEMTREP.org. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Very
So,
good.
and you can sign up, go to our website, you can sign up for our monthly mailing list too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Judith. And so this is Theda Nubras, Nistu Nidanico, Mokoyo Sokoi. That's my Blackfoot name. So we thank you for joining us in this hour. And we're into our 17th week. We have like, I don't know, 127 shows that we've done nonstop every day because we want to bring some, bottom line, we want to bring some healing to all of the tribes and all of America. And so Judith, thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate everyone for watching. And we hope that you have a beautiful weekend. And we hope that, you can look on our site, Native Wellness Institute. We have all 127 shows that you can rewatch. And believe me, they're all healing. So with that, Judith, we thank you. We're going to sign off and we blow some kisses. We blow some kisses from from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for spending this hour with us because we're all going to heal together. Thank you.
Thank you so much for asking me. I love you, Theda.
I love you. Kitsikako, mem.
Yes.